Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
There is a lot happening in Commander's Land right now, and I mean a lot. One story is the kind of feel-good, tip-your-hat, finally, about-time moment that makes you proud to be a fan of this organization. The other story is an absolute circus, the kind of drama that makes you want to grab popcorn, sit back, and just watch a grown man publicly unravel on social media in real time. So let's dig into both, because today's news cycle in Washington has genuinely got a little bit of everything. We're going to start with the good stuff, because it really is good, and honestly, it's been a long time coming. The Commanders have officially announced that John Riggins' number is finally getting retired. Number 44, the Diesel himself, is heading up into the Ring of Honor at Northwest Stadium. And look, if you've followed this franchise for any length of time, you already know how significant this is. This isn't just some ceremonial box-checking exercise. This is one of the most important, most beloved figures in franchise history finally getting the recognition that, frankly, should have happened a long, long time ago. For those who need the refresher, or for the younger fans who maybe only know Riggins as a name in the record books rather than a guy they watched with their own eyes, let's set the scene. 1982. The Commanders, then known by their old name, are fighting their way through the playoffs, and they run into the Dallas Cowboys in the NFC Championship game. This is peak rivalry football, the kind of game where the whole city stops breathing for 3 hours. And it's Riggins who delivers the signature moment. Fourth quarter, tight game, and he takes what's become one of the most iconic play calls in franchise history, 70 chip, bounces outside, breaks a tackle, and rumbles his way into the end zone to put the game away and send Washington to the Super Bowl. If you were alive and watching football that day, you remember exactly where you were. It's one of those plays. And he wasn't done. A week later, in Super Bowl 17 against the Miami Dolphins, Riggins put together an absolute legend-making performance. 142 yards on the ground, the signature moment of the entire game, and Washington walks away with the Lombardi Trophy. To this day, decades later, Riggins remains the franchise's all-time leading rusher. Think about that for a second. Through every era, every regime, every star running back that's worn burgundy and gold since, nobody has passed him. That record has stood the test of time, and it's not particularly close. So when the news came down, reportedly announced by ownership, that Riggins is finally getting his number retired and going up in the Ring of Honor, the reaction from the fan base was pretty much universal. It's about time. If there is one player in franchise history who unquestionably deserves this honor without a single asterisk or debate attached to it, it's Riggins. This is a guy who is synonymous with the franchise's golden era, synonymous with toughness, synonymous with delivering in the biggest moments the sport has to offer. There's genuinely no argument against this one. It's as close to a unanimous decision as you'll find in sports. The ceremony is set for November the 8th at Northwest Stadium, and if you're a longtime fan of this team, you might want to start figuring out how to get your hands on tickets for that game, because this is going to be a moment. There's already fun speculation floating around about whether Riggins himself might show up in some capacity wearing the old uniform for the ceremony, and honestly, given the guy's larger-than-life personality throughout his career, don't put it past him to walk out looking like he could still take 30 carries that afternoon if you asked him to. It's genuinely refreshing to get a story like this. A franchise honoring its history properly, giving credit where it's overwhelmingly due, and doing right by a legend who helped define what this organization is. There had apparently been previous attempts over the years that never quite got across the finish line, for whatever internal reasons those may have been. But under the current ownership group, it's finally happening. And that, by pretty much any measure, is a win for everybody involved. Congratulations to Riggins, an honor decades in the making and one that's absolutely deserved. Okay, now let's talk about the other story. because this one is a completely different animal, and honestly, it might be one of the more bizarre subplots of this entire NFL offseason. We need to talk about Brandon Aiyuk. If you've been anywhere near football social media over the past several weeks, you already know exactly where this is going. For those who need to catch up, Aiyuk has been engaged in a long, messy, increasingly public standoff with the San Francisco 49ers, and Commanders fans have found themselves dragged into the middle of it because his name keeps getting connected, rumor after rumor, to a potential landing spot in Washington. And for a while, a lot of fans, myself included if we're being honest, were willing to give him some benefit of the doubt. Trade disputes happen, front office relationships sour. Sometimes a talented player just needs a change of scenery, and there's nothing inherently wrong with wanting out of a situation that isn't working anymore. But here's where things have taken a turn, and where a lot of patience has officially run out. Aiyuk has continued posting videos of himself dancing around, framing it as some kind of celebratory mood because he believes he's on his way to becoming a Commander. He's also been putting out messaging suggesting he's essentially being held captive by the 49ers organization, painting himself as some kind of victim trapped against his will. And look, this is where the goodwill runs dry. Because here's the thing, nobody seems to want to say directly to him, nobody is holding you captive. That's simply not how any of this works. If you genuinely want out of a situation that badly, there is an extremely simple, extremely well-established path to make that happen. Show up. Walk into the practice facility. Tell the organization directly that you're ready to go, that you're reporting, that you're prepared to do whatever they ask of you. Force their hand. In all likelihood, if a player makes that move, the team moves on and finds a resolution, whether that's a trade, a release, or some other arrangement. Instead, what we've gotten is months of social media posturing, cryptic captions, dance videos, and victim narratives, all while conveniently avoiding the one simple action that would actually resolve the situation. And that's the real frustration here. The only person keeping Brandon Aiyuk out of a Commander's uniform, or any uniform for that matter, is Brandon Aiyuk. Nobody else. Not the 49ers front office pulling strings behind the scenes, not some grand conspiracy keeping him trapped against his will. Just a player who, for whatever reason, has chosen the path of public performance over the far simpler, far more direct route of actually forcing a resolution. There are really only two ways to interpret what's happening here, and neither one reflects particularly well on the situation. The first possibility is that this is some kind of extended performance art. A bit. Content for the sake of content, maybe an attempt to stay relevant or entertain his audience while the actual football situation drags on in the background. And look, if that's genuinely what this is, fine. It might have been mildly amusing for about 5 minutes early on. But at this point, it's not funny anymore. It's exhausting. It's the kind of thing where the audience isn't laughing along with you anymore, they're laughing at you, and there's a real difference between those two things. The second possibility is a lot more concerning, and it's worth saying carefully. If this isn't performance art, if this is genuinely how he sees his current situation, then that's a real conversation his inner circle needs to be having with him. Because acting out that kind of public narrative repeatedly in that manner might be a sign that something deeper is going on and that he could benefit from some outside perspective or support. Nobody watching from the outside can know for certain which of these two scenarios is true. All any of us can go off of is what he's chosen to put out publicly, which, to be fair, is entirely on him. He made the decision to broadcast all of this to the world, so it's fair game to react to it. But if forced to bet on which explanation is more likely, the simpler answer usually tends to be the correct one, and the simplest read here is that this is a player who's chosen a chaotic, attention-grabbing public approach over a mature, direct resolution for reasons that are honestly a little hard to fully understand from the outside looking in. And here's the twist that a lot of Commanders fans might not expect to hear. At this point, given everything that's played out publicly, there's a real argument that the organization probably shouldn't even want to sign him anymore, regardless of talent level. Talent alone doesn't excuse this kind of extended, self-inflicted circus. If and when the 49ers eventually do move on from him, whether that's a release or a trade, there's a growing sentiment that Washington would be better off steering clear entirely. Bring in a player with that much public baggage and that much demonstrated flair for chaos, and you're not just adding a receiver to the depth chart. You're potentially importing a distraction into a locker room that doesn't need one. There's even a darkly humorous angle to consider here. If there's no meaningful salary cap penalty tied to simply leaving him on a reserve list indefinitely, why would the 49ers even feel pressure to resolve this quickly? At this point, if the organization wanted to, they could simply let this play out for the rest of the season with no real downside, which would be a pretty fitting outcome given how this entire saga has unfolded. So there you have it. Two wildly different stories out of Washington this week. One is a genuinely heartwarming, long-overdue tribute to a franchise legend who helped deliver a Super Bowl and remains the greatest rusher in team history. The other is a bizarre, self-inflicted public relations mess involving a talented but increasingly hard-to-defend receiver who seems determined to make his situation as complicated and public as humanly possible. Football, man, it never runs out of storylines even in the dead of the offseason. As we roll toward training camp, which is now less than a week away across the entire league, expect both of these stories to keep evolving. The Iggins ceremony will get more details as November approaches, and you can bet the Aiyuk situation is nowhere close to being finished either. Not with how things have played out so far. So here's what I want to know from you. Are you as done with the Aiyuk situation as most of the fan base seems to be at this point, or do you think there's still a version of this where it makes sense for the Commanders to eventually bring him in? And for the Iggins side of things, are you already trying to line up tickets for November 8th to be there in person for that Ring of Honor moment? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I want to hear all of it. If you enjoyed breaking this down, do me a favor. Smash that like button, leave a comment with your take, and if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, now's a perfect time to do it. We've got a lot more Commanders coverage coming your way as training camp gets underway, and you are not going to want to miss a single update. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers, and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.